everybody. Thank you so much for coming. This is the 5th year of the entrepreneurship series. This fall, we started back in the fall of 2008. And one of the things we're doing this year that's pretty exciting to celebrate our 5th anniversary is we're having a pitch competition. You can pitch your business. We have real money. We have 3 prizes, $3,000 for the first prize. The second prize is $1,500, and the third prize is $500. So it is for technology-based businesses, and you can find all of the details on our website. It's right on our homepage. So look for this pitch on there, and click on that, and it'll take you to our application. And I also wanted to call attention to our schedule for the fall. So we are really pleased to have Ken and Babby here tonight. Ken started off in newspaper business with the Washington Post and quickly rose through the ranks there. He's a marketing guru by people, and found his way to Akron, and he is the owner and CEO of the Akron Aeros. So we'd like to give him a warm welcome.
Good evening. Thank you guys so much for having me. Are you guys able to hear me okay? Got a little microphone here. Just want to make sure everybody can hear me. I was just said to a couple of folks walking in, I've never spoken with a gun to my head before, so I'll do my best to steer clear. Thank you so much for inviting me. It's a real pleasure to be here tonight. This is a real treat for me. We just completed our first season. Of course, the Aeros have been around for 17 years, but it's my first season here in northeastern Ohio owning the Aeros, and just met with a number of different groups, but this is really a special treat. I haven't spent very much time in Hudson, and new to the area, and I'll tell you a little bit about my story, but this is a community I think that really embraces exactly what it is we do, which is hard work and the importance of work-life balance and the value of affordable family entertainment and education, which is a cause that and a mission that we are totally focused on at the Aeros. Tonight, what I wanted to do was take a little bit of time and tell you how a 33-year-old guy ends up owning a baseball team. It's an interesting story. At least I think so, and I'm proud of what we're doing at the Aeros, and more importantly, I'm proud about what this community is getting in terms of a great minor league baseball organization. Minor league baseball is about as unique a business as you'll find. Like other sports teams, we care tremendously about our fans, but minor league baseball teams don't have any control of what goes on the field. So for those of you that are in small business, and I consider myself an entrepreneur at the core, imagine not being able to control your core assets of your company. The performance of how the players do on the field is completely out of my control and that of my staff. They're completely controlled by that of the Cleveland Indians. So we are the AA affiliate of the Cleveland Indians, and everything that happens in between the lines, as we say in sports, is decided by Mark Shapiro and the team up in Cleveland. Everything that happens outside the lines, in the stands, at the concession booths, tickets, promotions, the fun zone, fan safety, even down to what the bathrooms look like, is the responsibility of our staff. I started my life in sports at a very young age. I was extremely fortunate to grow up in a family where sports really was a huge part of everything that we did. My sister was an athlete. I tried to be an athlete. As you can tell from looking at me, that didn't work out very well. So, I just knew somehow, some way I was going to end up in sports. I was particularly lucky in that my family was also in sports. My dad worked for the Baltimore Orioles and Washington Redskins as a lawyer for many years, and so I had a chance to be in and around an environment where I was able to see the way a lot of great sports organizations were run. I have sort of memories of being in the bowels of the stadium before and after games as preparations were going on. I once saw, and I don't think we have any kids in the room, so it's safe to say it, but I once saw the Oriole bird mascot without his hat on, you know, sitting there smoking a cigarette late at night. I mean, at the age of like 7, I have a 5-year-old son, that would be like totally traumatic for him to see that. And so at a very young age, I was corrupted in terms of the world of sports, and knew that fan experience was where my heart was. I was a little different than a lot of my friends. I was always trying to start some kind of business, bagel delivery business with my bicycle, or a small little software business doing website hosting in high school to help small businesses, kind of find their way on the web platform. So, while I certainly was never fortunate enough to find Facebook or make it in the .com boom, I always thought of myself as a guy that was always trying to sort of help people make connections and create great experiences for people in whatever business I was trying to create, whether it be the bagel delivery business or my summer selling shoes at the local mall in Bethesda, Maryland. I grew up in Washington, D.C. I went to school at Wheaton College in Massachusetts, and when I graduated Wheaton, I was dead set on getting a job in sports. I mean, I figured through my dad's contacts, I could start emailing everybody under the sun, and somebody had to give me an internship somewhere, right? I mean, I had to have that happen. I got what was the best advice I think that I could have possibly been given when I was graduating Wheaton, and that was actually not to go into sports. It was the last thing in the world I wanted to hear, but I was told, go out and find some expertise in some other area. Whether it be law or finance or marketing or sales, and bring that back into sports in some other way. And I'm sitting there here, of course, I'm like 19, 20 years old, and I'm thinking to myself, this is the world's worst advice. I don't want to do anything but go working for a sports team. I've dreamed of doing this my entire life. I'm sure I could find an internship somewhere. Well, it really was the best advice I ever was given. And as I meet with a lot of school groups now and talk about the sort of path to doing this, I very clearly realize why I received the advice I got. And that advice came from Larry Lucchino, who is the president and CEO and a part owner of the Boston Red Sox, and very successful sports executive who said, to go out and do that. So I applied for a job at the Washington Post. I had no experience at all in media. I think I took one marketing class in college. I was a software guy by background. I wrote programming and code, and that was what I wanted to do in terms of school. When the baseball thing in college didn't work out, I just had to focus on getting a double major. That was the only way that I was going to make it. So I really started the process of focusing on learning the media business. And my first job at the Washington Post was working 6 p.m. till 3:30 in the morning, helping to get the paper out, working for a group called the Pre-Press Systems Group, and we were responsible for all the software that goes into getting the newspaper out. If you've ever worked, has anybody in the room ever worked night shift before? Yeah, I mean, so for those of us who have done it, it's a different world. It's a different culture. You're going to sleep when people are waking up. You're trying to find time to get your errands done when most people aren't. Sometimes that's a good thing. But relationships are tough, and it's hard to meet people, and it's a tough way of life. I did that for 3 years, and I was really sort of I figured the best way to learn the newspaper business and the media business at a company like the Washington Post was to be there when the action was happening, and that was the job. Made very little money doing it, but I made the commitment to myself that I was going to really invest my time in terms of learning the process and trying to get comfortable with it. So, here I was sort of trying to figure out my career, and I figured I'd do this for a couple of years, and then I'd end up in sports. I'd make my leap back. It didn't go quite to plan. I ended up staying at the Post 13 years. I was very fortunate to have a number of different roles there, from a sales manager to national sales director. I ran sales and marketing for the company overall for about 5 years, and then for the last real portion of my career, I had what in some ways was, I think, the most exciting job you can have in media, and that was trying to figure out the digital future of the media business. My title was GM of Digital, and I was also the company's Chief Revenue Officer. So half my time was spent sort of trying to keep this business afloat on the advertising side as circulation was falling at 5, 7, some years 10% each year. And the other part of me was trying to figure out how to deliver news experiences on an iPhone and on an iPad and on a tablet. And if Apple comes out with a smartwatch, we would have figured out a way to get news and headlines on that as well. So I started the process of just sort of championing portability of news and saying to myself, like, we're going to try and figure out, from a Washington Post perspective, how we're going to get news and headlines and information in the hands of people wherever they are, wherever they want it, whether it be on a subway in New York or, you know, sitting in the back seat of a car in, you know, somewhere in the Middle East or in China. The problem, I think, it was that the experiences were great, but the toothpaste was already out of the tube in the media business. In some ways, the decisions that were made 15, and this is just opinion, but 15 or 20 years ago to put that information on the web for free really changed the game as it related to news consumption. You know, we had a $200 million newsroom at the Post with bureaus in Afghanistan and Iraq and Syria and all these places that you see this great coverage from, but any one of us could go home and pull up www.washingtonpost.com and get the work of that business for free. You know, and the world of print newspapers, and we say this, you know, sitting in a library, the world of print newspapers was changing. And I used to visit a lot of different school groups and community organizations in and around the Washington area, and I'd ask for a show of hands of how many people read a newspaper on a daily basis. And that number started to really to go down. It was particularly scary, and I don't know if anybody in the room has high school or college-aged kids, but when I went into those groups and I said, how many of you read a newspaper, I'd be lucky if I got one, and generally it was the teacher or the professor in the room. That business has fundamentally changed, and when I asked people, how do you guys know what's going on in the world, you know, they'd say, oh, Facebook or Twitter, or, you know, I saw it, you know, I saw it on, you know, my friend's Instagram feed or something like that. And I realized we had a real problem. And I realized that I was wrong about my earlier inclination that the experiences were great, because they clearly weren't built for the people that needed them. So there was a monetary issue in the business model, and there was also an experiential problem in terms of how to package these products. And so we spent a number of years really building those. We introduced the first paywall last year at the Post, behind the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times, because our position was always that there should be one last paper that really gives it all for free and consumes you, and we'll make our money on the back end in advertising. We didn't want to pass that cost on to our consumers. So how does this all end up to Akron? Well, about 2 or 3 years ago, I realized that while I was, you know, leading a great team and in the process of, you know, trying to figure out some real, you know, systemic issues of a newspaper business that was in a decline, I really wanted to get back to my entrepreneurial roots. And I started spending my weekends and a little time in the summer and my vacation time driving around looking at minor league baseball teams. Because, you know, while I loved what was going on the field, again, my passion was, what does the food taste like? What do people, you know, what are their experiences by the time they get out of their car and walk into these ballparks? And so by day, I was doing my day job and trying to be a good dad to Josh, my 5-year-old son, now 5 years old, you know, maybe 2 or 3 then. And by night, I was scouring the web trying to read all about minor league baseball and this business that I'd been so passionate about since I was a little kid and young. By the way, I like to think I'm still young, but that's for another point. So I got in touch with a guy by the name of Joe McCathern. And Joe was, and still is, the Eastern League president. And you know, there I am sitting in my Washington, D.C. Apartment one night, and I'm talking to Joe, and he said, well, what do you want to do? He said, are you serious about this minor league baseball thing? And I said, I am. He said, would you give up what you're doing to do this for a living? I said, in a heartbeat, if the right opportunity existed. And baseball teams, sports teams, for those of you that know sports, you know, they don't hang for sale signs on the side of stadiums. You got to know the right people, and you got to get in touch with them, and they have to be willing to sell. And he said, well, have you ever been to Akron, Ohio? And I have to admit, nothing against everybody here, I hadn't. And I said, you know, I don't know much about Akron, Ohio. I think I made a couple of sales calls to Cleveland a few years ago to Sherwin-Williams, but that was my experience in northeastern Ohio. And he said, before you form any opinion, just get in your car and drive out there and spend, you know, a weekend there. He said, bring your son and just go out and see what this place is all about. And I said, is the team available? He said, I don't want to get into the economics or the situation or the politics of it. Just go out there. So I, you know, get in my car on a Friday afternoon, and I drive out to Akron, and I park my car, and I walk into Canal Park. And I think there was a lot that happened in those moments, and I've thought a lot about it in the year now, almost a year and a half that's passed. One, I think I felt completely at home because Canal Park was designed by a firm, those of you who know your sports architecture, was built by a firm called HOK. And HOK, now known as Populous, had designed Progressive Field, then Jacobs Field up in Cleveland, but also Oriole Park at Camden Yards in Baltimore. So I think something about the brick and the facade and being downtown grabbed me the moment I walked into the park. And I just started to look and see why people were here, and sat down in the seats, and I did bring Josh with me and bought him a hot dog. I thought the hot dog was a little too expensive. That was my first reaction. Although everything out here seemed much cheaper, by the way, than living in Washington. So I had, I filled up my car, and I said, boy, I could get used to this real quick. Although that's changed too. But I sat down and I started watching this, and I started listening, and I realized people were there for the baseball game, but they were really there to socialize, and they were really there for community experience. And I realized that this was a really special place. So I stayed Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I drove home. I called Joe on Monday. I said, Joe, the team's home again next week, and I think I'm going to go back. And he's laughing on the other end of the phone. And he said, what did you like about it? I said, this is a really special community. I said, it seems insulated from a lot of the issues that I see at the Major League Baseball level. It has tremendous sense of opportunity because of the facility. The community cares about this thing. I had read a lot about the mayor and Mayor Pasqualik for all of his antics and craziness. He wanted so badly this to be the cornerstone of the revitalization of downtown Akron, and it just hadn't happened. And I read the history. I saw that the Aeros were the first team to 500,000 fans in all of minor league baseball. There's 160 minor league baseball teams from every level of, AAA, AA, single A, rookie ball. I mean, there's all these teams, and here was the fastest team to 500,000 fans in the nation. And they were the first in the Eastern League in attendance for like 5 or 6 years, and then last year finished second to last, right? So there's something must have happened here. I mean, systemically, I thought about my newspaper days, I thought about my time at the Post. Structurally, something has gone wrong here. And I, like an entrepreneur, I wanted to get in there and see if there was a place to try and solve a problem. So I called Joe and I said, I'm going back next week. And he said, well, call me, let me know how it goes. So I stayed out 10 days on that trip. I called and said I needed to take some time off from work, and those guys probably thought I was totally nuts. But I wanted to figure this out, and I came back from that trip, and I called Joe and I said, I want to buy the Akron Aeros. And he said, all right, let's start talking about how we're going to do this. It was a relatively smooth process. The guy who owned the team was a guy by the name of Michael Aganis. He lived in Boston. He wasn't really, and I think if he were sitting here, he wouldn't be hurt by me saying it. He wasn't really invested in the community. He didn't live here. He'd fly in for a few weekends a year to go to games, but didn't really see the essence of what was so essential to minor league baseball, which is a connection to the community. He wasn't as committed to giving back. He didn't see the presence in the hospitals and the schools. He wouldn't come out and meet like groups like this. It just wasn't his thing. He figured, owning a baseball team, he could be like, George Steinbrenner or one of these guys. That was just kind of a fun little trophy for him at the end of his career. I looked at it totally differently. I looked at it as a startup. I looked at it as if I bought this team, I was going to move to northeastern Ohio. I was going to hire a staff that was just totally committed towards turning this thing around, and we were going to get people back in by creating the best affordable fan experience in the country. And that's what we've done. On October 12th last year, we closed the transaction to buy the team. I'm the sole owner of the team. Interestingly enough, which is only brought to my attention, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 months ago. I'm the youngest sports owner in the United States, which is something I'm proud of, but also frightens the heck out of me. So I better not screw it up for future folks that get into this. I try and stay as humble as I can. I try as best as, and I say this to folks all the time that are working for us, I still think in many ways I have that intern mentality that I had when I was starting at the beginning at the Post. I think about our business as a chance 71 games a year to try a lot of different things, and some of them go well and a lot of them don't go well, and we're going to try and keep doing the things that work over and over and over again. When I bought the team, I started the process of really starting to search for the best in talent. And for those of you, of course, that own and operate in the world of small and medium-sized businesses, and I suspect you do because you're here tonight, it's all about hiring the right people. And it's all about getting them on the bus. And in my opinion, it's all about not just getting them on the bus, but getting them in the right seats. You know, making sure that the right people are doing the right things. There were a handful of folks from the old regime that we actually interviewed and I kept. There were a lot of them that just didn't make sense in our organization, and you know, we went separate ways. The most important hire that I made was a guy by the name of Jim Fander. Jim is an Akron guy, a Hoban grad, had just got minor league baseball, had been in the business for about 17 years, 15, 16, 17 years, had run teams all across the country, and I'd heard about this guy, and I said, you know, I have to meet him. I mean, this guy had won minor league executive of the year 5 or 6 times, and I knew he was from Akron, and I said, boy, if I could recruit this guy to come back home to run his team, this could be the greatest story in the world. So I fly down to Sarasota, Florida. It's you know, probably 3rd week in October. The news had just come out that I'd bought the team, and I flew down, and Jim is living literally in, I've been to Sarasota, it's beautiful by the water. I mean, I gave myself like a 10% chance of success of being able to recruit Jim Fander to come back to Akron, Ohio to run his minor league baseball team. And I basically got on my knees and I started begging. I mean, there's no sophisticated strategy behind it whatsoever. I begged Jim to come back and be our GM and our chief operating officer. His wife was 9 months pregnant, was about to give birth about 3 weeks from the time that I'd been down there to see him, and I didn't think it was going to work, but I begged and sent flowers to his wife, wrote letters to him. I said, we really want you to come back home, and we want you to buy this team. And I made due on my commitment. I admitted I was going to also move to Akron. I said I was going to pack up my Jeep and move out here, and I said, I'm all in. I'm not going to be an absentee owner. This is going to be a strange dynamic for a sports owner who wants to be out and be involved and really care to building this thing. And Jim called me back about 5 days later, and he said, I know we haven't worked out a salary number. This is one of my favorite stories. I know we haven't worked out a salary number, but I'm pretty confident we can figure that out. I accept your offer. I want to come back to Akron. And we figured out the number. It took us about, I don't know, 20 minutes to figure that out. And after Paige gave birth to her beautiful daughter, Ella, they were in the car driving from Florida, and Jim's our GM, and back home where he should be running his team. And that's a great story, too, because great people hire great people. A's hire A's. I mean, Jim has brought and recruited some of the finest talent in this business, and ironically, and this is probably just by chance, for our opening season on opening day, I was the only person in the front office not born in Ohio, which is just interesting. I mean, he recruited a woman from Stowe who was running promotions for a team in Richmond, Virginia, Christina Schisler, back to come back home and run marketing and promotions for us. So, you know, here we are. We've announced our GM. We've announced a couple of these key hires. You could sort of feel the adrenaline rush. You know, all of these things that, you know, I sort of dreamed of doing were starting to happen. But the ballpark really looked like it had, you know, lost its way. Canal Park's only 17 years old, but the prior owner hadn't really done the things that we felt were necessary. So the day I bought the team, I stood up and did 2 things that I thought were really important. One, I signed a 25-year lease extension with the city of Akron. I sat there with Mayor Pasqualik for almost 17 nights in a row, and if you've never spent, you know, a night with Mayor Pasqualik, imagine spending 17 straight nights with him negotiating a lease. We announced the day I bought the team that I'd signed this lease extension to commit. We wanted to scream from the rooftops that it was a whole new ballgame, that the Aeros weren't going anywhere, and that, you know, there was some speculation that the team was going to move and what we were going to do. I wanted to be really clear to the community that we weren't going anywhere, and that if anything, we were going to invest harder and deeper into the community, and that I was moving here, and that this was a whole part of it. And I think looking back, you know, a year later, and I'll tell you sort of how the first year chapter ends, but that was one of the most important things we did. I think in a business, the very best thing you can do is be honest and commit, and if you're going to, you know, put your money down and your time and your energy to do something, tell people that this is what you intend to do. I mean, there was no magic from it. I don't think there was any super secret, you know, Harvard Business School strategy about it. I just said, look, if we're going to stay in Akron and we're going to put money into the stadium and I'm going to move here, let's get this done right from the first week. I said, what better to just, literally scream from the rooftops that we are part of this community and care and being here. I also committed to put $3.5 million of private financed improvements back into Canal Park, not taxpayer paid, which was really important. The taxpayers of Akron had, and a little less from Summit County, but the taxpayers of the region had really invested big to build Canal Park. And many hadn't seen the return of it. So I said, well, I'm going to put my money down as well, not just in terms of buying the team, but also in terms of making some real improvements to cleaning up Canal Park, even though it was only 17 years old. First thing we did was we put the largest video board in minor league baseball into Canal Park. And if you came down to a game this year, you had to see this thing. I mean, it was spectacular. It's 68 feet wide. It's clearer than anything you'll see even up at Progressive Field. I happened to be at the game in Progressive Field today. The Indians lost a tough one. But it's as clear a video board as you'll see. And we're very, very proud of it. We ran a couple of movie nights this summer. We wanted people to come down on the outfield grass and gaze up into the, into the sky on a summer's night and be able to watch Field of Dreams and Smurfs for the kids. And it was fun. They weren't profitable events for us. We gave the proceeds to United Way as part of a charity program, and we were thrilled to do that. I mean, this is the community's ballpark. We just wanted to rebuild that habit of getting people to start spending time downtown. The second thing that I thought was really important, in addition to putting the money into this video board, was cleaning up the ballpark. Parts of the concourse of the place hadn't been power washed in like 16 years. So, I mean, even though a ballpark is like a house, I mean, if you own a house and it's 17 years old, you don't think it's really that old, but if you don't care for it, especially with the weather that we get here, which I'm learning quickly, by the way, is quite cold, you got to care for these things. And the facade hadn't been cleaned and painted, and the seats hadn't been replaced. So we spent another $1 million just doing that. And all of a sudden, here we were, about 100 days to opening day, and we realized that we had to start the process of getting fans to know what we were doing and getting them to come back. We released our marketing program. We released our promotion schedule. I had heard on my early trips to Akron that people loved fireworks. That was like the draw that got people to come to the ballpark. You could try, and minor league baseball, by the way, is all about ridiculous promotions. You could try every promotion, and I bet everyone in this room's got some great promotions idea. Hands down, I could tell you we're having fireworks and I'd beat any idea you'd ever have. I mean, we've tried, and we had some wild ideas, and I'll tell you about those too. So I said to Jim Fander, I know I'm not, much experience in the baseball business yet, but we have data to support that fireworks draw fans, and they do them every Friday, right? And he said, yeah. I said, well, why don't we do them Friday and Saturday? Like, real brilliant idea, right? Like, let's do more fireworks. So more than a third of our games this year at Canal Park had fireworks. It was a huge driver of attendance for us. We also did the gimmicky, fun promotions every night. Every 71 of our games, we did something different for the fans. On Saturdays, they were Celebrity Saturday nights. And so in addition to doing fireworks, every Saturday we did something really special for the community. This year was the 25th anniversary of the movie Major League. So we flew Corbin Burnson in from Los Angeles, Roger Dorn from the movie Major League, for Roger Dorn night. The entire Aeros team wore the Indians jerseys from the period. Corbin Burnson was there throughout the first pitch, signed autographs for like 5 innings. Turns out he has deep affection for the Akron community and some roots here with the Soapbox Derby and some other things in the community. So he was elated, didn't charge us a penny, although he called us and said, I'm happy to do this. We said, well, we're going to do a bobblehead. I mean, this is so cool. We're going to do a Roger Dorn bobblehead doll, right? How cool would that be? He said, yeah, that's cool, but have you ever thought of doing a snow globe? And we're all sitting on this conference call like, what the heck? Why do we want to do a snow globe? Turns out Corbin Burnson is a great fan of snow globes. Who knew? And has a collection of over 8,500 snow globes. I mean, this is what you're dealing with Hollywood personalities, right? And he said he had a whole room in his house in Los Angeles full of snow globes, but nobody had created a snow globe of him. So Jim Fander and I and Christina were looking at each other, and he said, all right, we're going to create a Corbin Burnson snow globe. And on a Saturday in June, we had Corbin Burnson night, and we had 9,100 people in the ballpark that night. It was our first sellout. It was the first sellout in Canal Park, and really from a number standpoint in more than 10 years. There were some nights where free tickets were distributed in the past. So they used to call them buyout nights, where they would, literally just give free tickets. But from a paid attendance standpoint, it was the first sellout in over a decade, which is something we were very proud of. We doubled down on fireworks. We doubled down on promotions. We did a number of fun things in the community. We did Jim Trestle night. We just kept trying different kinds of fun things. We also got really serious about affordable pricing. And I told people when we moved here that was going to be an important part of our mission, and it is. You can always get into Canal Park for $5, and you will always be able to get into Canal Park for $5. The most expensive seat behind the plate is $9. So, I mean, you can have a reserved seat literally sitting about 15 feet from the catcher at Canal Park for $9. Parking is free in downtown Akron. And back to those hot dogs that I thought were too expensive, I heard that every other weekend they did something called $1 hot dogs nights, and I think the Indians did them this year as well on Friday nights as well. So I said, well, what if we did $2 hot dogs every single night? Instead of this $1 hot dog night, and you don't know when it's $1 hot dog night, let's just make our hot dogs $2 all the time, every game. That was an instant success with our fans. So for all 71 nights, plus our movie nights, hot dogs were $2. And then we got really excited about food and extreme food items. And if you haven't had dinner yet, I apologize. I'm going to tell you about our 3 extreme food items at Canal Park. They're not going to be the healthiest, but thankfully we have 3 hospitals within walking distance of Canal Park, so you're well covered. The first is the Nice to Meet You burger. It's 1.25 pounds of beef. It has grilled hot dogs, grilled onions, cheddar cheese, and it's served on a Kaiser bun, and meat is spelled M-E-A-T, nice to meet you. And the hot dog actually bends into a smiley face as we hand it over on the burger. We also have, playing off of John Madden, the Turducken, we have the 3-dog night, which is a hot dog stuffed inside a Polish sausage, stuffed inside a kielbasa, all served on a hoagie bun with grilled onions. I see your faces. Some of you are laughing. Some of you are like, oh my goodness. We sold a lot of those this year. We do have healthy food at the ballpark as well. I want to make sure everybody knows we have wraps and salads and fruit skewers and all that good stuff too. So as a parent, I care very much about these issues, but ballpark food and extreme foods are part of minor league baseball. So you can't leave the ballpark without having a little ice cream. And if you go up to Cleveland or you go to Baltimore, a lot of these great major league parks, you can get one of these little plastic sundaes, right? Where, they a little mini helmet, right? So we said, it would be really cool. What if we took a real, authentic Aeros batting helmet, like the ones the players wear, and we put ice cream in it and gave that as a novelty item. And so we created that, and it's called the Screamer. It's 21 scoops of ice cream, a brownie, a banana, whipped cream, and hot fudge, and we give you 4 spoons for sharing with your family. It's a pretty good value. It's $20, and the whole family goes home, and you also get to keep a batting helmet. And we had on the first opening weekend of the year, we had a challenge with the University of Akron football team, and we challenged it. If any of them could eat it individually, a single player eat it, we'd give it to them for free, and only one player, who's a huge linebacker, ate it, and it wasn't good. He wasn't looking so good when he finished it himself. But so extreme foods is an important part of our business. The other thing that we did, and I think continue to do, is we must be a difference maker in the community. We're sure we're for selling tickets and hot dogs and all that great stuff and Nice to Meet You burgers and Screamers, but it's as much about us being active in the community from an education standpoint, from a philanthropic standpoint, from a wellness standpoint. You will see our mascot orbit all over the place. Before opening day 2012, this past season, we made something like 80 or 90 appearances in the community. Orbit's been to Hudson many times. It's been all over the community up to Cleveland. We'll pretty much send Orbit, our mascot, anywhere that you guys requested, and we don't charge for appearance fees for our mascot. So we got a phone call and said, hey, can you come do my kid's birthday? And we did it. We can't do all those things, but we'll pretty much do anything that we're asked to do. And when there's an opportunity to be out in the community, we pretty much always say yes. That's a mantra that I've said, always try and find a way to get to yes, obviously. You'll also see us in the hospitals, in the schools. I'm out personally in a lot of events, but so is our staff. I spoke at 2 groups yesterday for Leadership Akron. I was at a commerce meeting this morning. I'm here tonight. I mean, I want to be out in the community as best as I can, sharing what we're trying to build, which is this great, affordable experience in terms of minor league entertainment. So how'd the first year go? Our attendance this past year, and generally people in our business don't talk about numbers. I'm pretty open with how we've done, and very thankful and humbled by the community's support of it. Our attendance was up 12% this year. It was the single greatest attendance growth in the history of the franchise since the Aeros moved to Akron from Canton in 1996-97. And remember, we still have a long way to go. We had 295,000 fans in the ballpark this year, and we still have a long way to go to get back to that 500,000 number where the Aeros were at their peak just 8 or 9 years ago. So, you know, and you look at this and you say, can it be done? Can we sell this affordable experience? Can we drive back the community's interest? We believe Akron really deserves this. We really believe it's not just Akron, it's Northeastern Ohio. I've gone to spend time in Canton, I've been up in Cleveland. We try and go out and really say, this is where we want people to spend their time in the summer. And we have a lot to learn. We have a small staff of 23 people that spend all year round trying to build this product. On a game night, we have 150 people in the ballpark. You'll find ushers that greet you with a smile. Our process starts with identifying that time that you get out of your car to the time you walk through the gates, choose where you want to sit, visit your concession stand where you want to pick up something to eat. You know, the seat's going to be clean, and we're going to entertain the heck out of you for 2.5 hours. And you're going to have a great time. And if you've really enjoyed yourselves, you're probably going to go home and you might not even know who won the game because you've had so much fun, and your kids are in the fun zone jumping around and maybe getting face painted and looking at the business. You know, I reflect back to when I said that I was going to do this and pick up, and I spent a lot of time, now that this first season ended, I've had a lot of time to sort of sit back and reflect over the last couple of weeks. And I think about a night, a little more than a year ago now, where I was really serious about this. One of those first drives back to DC from Akron, where I was thinking about picking up my life and what that would mean, and leaving DC after been almost 32 years living there and moving here. And I said, I want to be part of building a business that's doing something right and that's doing something good for the community. We have to be a good business. We have to make money to be able to do all these things. But the truth of the matter is we have enough stress and craziness and challenges in our life, whether it be relationships or work or school or whatever you have going on in your life. How great would it be to be able to build a business, to be able to provide a place where people could come that was safe, fun, relaxing, where they can bring their family and their loved ones and do so at an affordable price. And so that's the mission of our business, and that's what we do at the Akron Aeros. I am very, very proud to call this region home. I moved here. I spent actually when Red Doors, where you'll see me eating dinner there a lot. I have dinner there, and as is this pizza place, which is unbelievable behind us, which I've also discovered. So it is a real pleasure to be here with you all tonight, and thank you for being out here and for giving me such a warm welcome to the community, and for giving the Aeros such a great first season, and look forward to seeing you in 210 days at opening day down at the ballpark. So thanks so much for having me. Happy to take some questions and, talk to you a little bit about what we're up to. Yes, sir.
Since you seem to be on this whole sustainability thing, what are you doing environmental?
Yeah, a great question. So there's a great business located about 2 blocks from Canal Park called Gojo. I'm sure many of you know it, and maybe even have some employees in here tonight. Joe Camphor and that business, of course, if you may know them better by the Purell brand, of course. I was in an early meeting with them before last season, and I said, how great would it be to be the greenest and cleanest ballpark in all of baseball? And I said, certainly teams sell these naming rights, and you could call it XYZ Stadium, First Energy. I said, how cool would it be to be Purell Park? And I made that joke to Joe, and he smiled. And while the business fit may not be there, it's a heck of a goal for us. And so, first of all, there's a number of environmental standards that happen in sports which we abide by, which we're very, very proud of. We from an energy consumption, we partner with the city of Akron and use chilled water for the majority of our heating and cooling. We also are LEED certified in terms of a sports team, which is a very high ranking. Aeros had that beforehand. Our facility isn't LEED certified, but the improvements that we're making, our video board that I mentioned earlier is actually one of the most efficient in minor league baseball. I could leave that running for an entire game, and actually, an extra inning game, and it cost me about $80 to run it. So that gives you a sense in terms of people say, oh my God, you leave this thing on all the time. There's folks here that are games, this board is enormous, and it's actually not that expensive to run because of its efficiency. So, and then in terms of trash and removal and things like that, you'll see no styrofoam products on the concourse. This year we had them on the suite level, but are phasing them out and getting away from the kinds of products that just aren't right for the environment. So we'll do our part, but as will the businesses in downtown Akron. We're opening up a restaurant in March. I didn't mention that in my remarks, but very excited about announcing a 360-day year-round restaurant at the ballpark on the ground level, a grill, an all-American city grill that'll be available for families and for fans, not just on game nights, but all summer and all winter long. As I mentioned, my 5-year-old son Joshua, when I first came and had lunch with him about, 2 blocks from the ballpark, we were at a bar, not to be mentioned, where literally I could hear his feet sticking to the floor from beer from the night before, and I said, we got to build a great all-American sports bar and restaurant and grill where people can come and bring their family and feel really comfortable doing that. And so that's what we're building. It opens in March. We break ground in October. So a number of things on the sustainability front. It's a great question, and we'll continue to grow our business that way. Yeah. Yes, sir.
I'm not sure if you remember who I am, but when you had bicycle days down ride your bicycle.
Yeah.
I'm Rickshaw Willie, by the way.
Sure, you're Rickshaw Willie, and I rode my bike to that game. I was sore for about a week after, but we appreciate having you down and everything you did with us. I hope it was a good endeavor for you to be part of it.
Yeah, it was. I
Great.
enjoyed it.
Great, and we'll get you back.
All right, thanks.
Be a long ride from here down there, though.
Yeah, it's all down.
Yeah, exactly. All downhill, right. Yes, ma'am.
Is Joshua playing t-ball?
Joshua's playing t-ball. He plays fall t-ball. He plays spring t-ball, and I'm actually an assistant coach on his fall t-ball team, which is great. Spring was a little bit challenging, but yes, those are the questions I love. Why don't people ask those questions more often? Yes, sir.
Okay, what one thing, looking back in your first year, would you do entirely different?
Buy a farmer's almanac and look at the weather. How about that? Weather, no, all joking aside, weather has huge impact on the baseball business. You get a schedule 2 years in advance. We know our schedule for 2014. It's actually out on our website, and have seen a draft for 2015. Weather's the one thing you can't control, right? I talked about not being able to control what happens on the field. You plan all year long planning for these things, like Roger Dorn night. The weather was terrific that night, but you plan all these nights planning, and then the radar starts to come in with weather. And fans are sensitive to those things, although there's a pretty resilient fan base in this community. In April and May, when I have to tell you, I'm not sure I would have sat out on some of those cold nights at a baseball game. We did okay. And so what would we do differently? I would have more climate-controlled areas for fans, and that's exactly what we're doing. We're building the restaurant. We're building a terrace club. We renovated all 25 of our suites and pretty much sold those out on the key weekends during the season. It's northeastern Ohio, and in April and early May, weather's still a factor, and so this year, season ticket holders can have a chance to be able to come in and watch a game from a climate-controlled deck with a buffet and a lot of other great experiences. And I think we're going to charge $12, by the way, for our all-you-can-eat buffet. So this is a pretty affordable endeavor. And as I said, I think there will always be things that we can be doing better. We always want to be able to be listening to our customers and fans to hear the things that we can do deeper. I'm sure I could have given you a million things, but I think having some climate-controlled areas will only enhance the experience and give people more of a reason to come down and have a great time with their families. Yes, sir.
The Aeros are still an affiliate of India.
Yes.
So how frequently do you, as the owner of the Aeros, interact with the management or ownership?
It's a great question. A lot, and that's by choice and by design. So I mentioned the new lease, and I mentioned the private improvements that we're making to the ballpark. What I didn't mention, which we did about 2 weeks after that, it was kind of a fast-forward process for us. I re-signed a player development agreement with the Indians. Those are available in 2-year and 4-year terms. I signed it for the maximum time possible. It's a 4-year extension with the Indians. We don't want to be the minor league AA affiliate of any other team in Major League Baseball. We don't want to be the minor league affiliate of the Tampa Bay Rays. We're in northeastern Ohio, and we want to be the Indians affiliate. And so Mark Shapiro was down at probably about 5 or 6 Aeros games this year, even a couple nights that the Indians were home, which we thought was pretty cool that he was down with us. Sure, he's looking at his talent and Francisco Lindor and other players coming through, but he was also looking at our operation and concessions and contests on the field. The Indians have had their attendance challenges as well, so we help each other. We share customer lists with them. We market to Indians fans, and they market to some of our fans when the Aeros aren't home, which is a pretty relatively new concept between major and minor league baseball teams working together. I would say that we have some touch point with the Indians. I personally have some touch point with the Indians once a week. Even through the off season. As I said, I was up there today. They were down with us a couple of weeks ago. I'll be back up there when they could return from the road trip. So there's always either some player development issue that we're working together on, or something relative to the partnership. You know, we're responsible for their travel, for the bus, for the meals, all those kinds of things. So there's a lot of collaboration. And the Indians, you should be proud to know as Indians fans, the things that you don't see behind the scenes are how much the Indians really care about their players. Even as a minor league player, they're feeding very high protein meals, they're giving them very high quality food after games, sushi and fish and all these other things that they're not required to do for some of these guys, and only probably 10 or 15% of the minor league players will ever see a day in the major leagues. And so they're really investing hard into their minor league development system in the hopes that it's going to accelerate the success. By the way, back in the old days of minor league baseball, we're responsible for feeding the teams. The teams used to just go up to the concession stands and grab some chicken fingers and fries and hot dogs and pizza and just shove it on a plate and say, hey guys, here's your meal after the game. Those days are over. I mean, you couldn't get away doing that now anyway. But the Indians are very specific, and we have a chef that feeds our team at the end of every game and packs them wraps and fruit and things on the road before they get on a bus, and that's the AA team. So you can imagine how nice it must be if you're Nick Swisher or Michael Bourne heading off on the road trip tonight to Chicago on the private plane. Those guys do pretty well. So yeah.
Other than issues pertaining to the players who are contracted,
Yeah.
do the Indians ever do you get permission for the Indians to do anything with respect to your business other than the players?
It depends, is the answer to your question. When we wanted to wear the Indians uniforms on Roger Dorn night, I picked up the phone, I called Mark, I said, I want to do this, I think it's a good idea, it'd be fun. He laughed, he said, I love it, it's a great idea, take some pictures, good luck with it. There was nothing contractually that required me to make that phone call, but it was the right thing to do. Because I wouldn't want Mark to hear or read in the paper the next day that the Aeros were running around in the retro 1990 Indians uniforms without him knowing about it. That's just the spirit of our partnership. I probably couldn't find some legal reason why I had to make that call. He would also do the same with me. He called me and said, listen, Francisco Lindor, the top prospect in our system, is coming to Akron next week. This was in the middle of the season. He was playing down in Carolina, and the team was about to come home. That gave my staff time to make sure that we found a house for the guy, that we found a place for him to live, that we got his car here from Florida. They're just logistical things behind the scenes that they do, of course, for the benefit of their players, but by helping us, we're going to make their experience in Akron much better. And from what I hear from Jim Fander and other people in our organization, that's not always the way that it's done. So I'm trying to think of another example of where we would need their permission. Generally speaking, the only time we really hear from them are when there are problems. The hotels aren't good enough, and we haven't had any complaints like that this year. There was an issue on one of the trips with the bus. We had a guy who was, they have a no cell phone rule on the bus. You got 35 guys on a bus ride for 12 hours to Portland, Maine, or 15 hours to Portland, Maine. They had a player who was sitting in the back talking to his girlfriend on the phone the entire time. We got a phone call about it. We had to deal with it. It was fine. So those are the kinds of things you're dealing with. 19, 20, 21-year-old kids who are away from home, some of them for the very first time. But, that's probably like any business. I feel like sometimes I'm a camp counselor at summer camp trying to keep these guys all kind of moving in the same direction. But
involved at all with accommodation for visiting teams coming in?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's actually a real issue for us. We really lack downtown in Akron a hotel. It's a real problem, and I've been very public with my comments and very concerned about this issue, not just for us from a baseball perspective, but also for businesses like First Energy, Gojo, and others, the law firms that are based downtown in Akron. If we're going to get really serious about revitalizing that downtown community, you got to have great restaurants, you got to be safe, you got to have housing, and you have to have a hotel. You just have to. And it blows my mind that with University of Akron right there, they had the Quaker, which was a hotel for many years. That closed down. There was a Ramada that lost its license that's below our standards of where we can put players. So we really are without a hotel option. Our visiting teams this year had to stay up in Montrose on the Hill, in Fairlawn, way too far for where a team should have to be staying when they come in to work out and they're traveling from all these places. And so, I've been open with the Beacon Journal on this topic, but we place 1,400 room nights a year for visiting teams and umpires and visiting folks in Akron. That doesn't even include fans that travel on minor league baseball tours, and we have a lot of those too. 1,400 room nights. And we have no place to put these guys, and the problem's got to be solved. And as I said, I would be the first to sign a letter of commitment to give somebody who's interested in financing one of these hotels a commitment on rooms. And you've read in the media, I'm sure, about there's a Hilton project, there's a Goodyear project, there's a number of rumored projects, but none of which we've seen break ground yet. And we're deeply committed to helping to solve that problem. I don't know anything about the hotel business, so don't look for me. We're going to worry about our baseball team and our little restaurant. But if you know anybody who wants to open up a hotel, come chat with me. We'd love to work together. Yes, sir.
If you're not spending too much time on it, could you elaborate? Is it certain features of a hotel that are required, and certain miles from the stadium, or what exactly?
Yeah. So we're looking for, and the challenge here, of course, is that in the spring and summertime, between Firestone and the Soapbox Derby and other things going on, University of Akron, the hotels that are here are it's sort of the radius outside of the community, are pretty well booked. So we're looking for a mid-level hotel chain, preferably with a Marriott or a Hilton flag on it, but we're open to Best Western or any. We're not in any way partial to any particular hotel chain, and we'd like to be within 5 miles of the ballpark. These teams come in often at 3 or 4 in the morning from another city, and they give us that courtesy when we go to these other places. So it's a little bit about you get what you give, and when we drive to Trenton, New Jersey, and Portland, Maine, and Manchester, New Hampshire, and Richmond, Virginia, our ballpark is our hotel where we stay is generally about sometimes walking distance, but generally a couple miles from the ballpark. And the players like that. It's also good for their well-being to be able to actually have a life outside of playing baseball for 6 months of the year. They also train and work out and do those things. So
it's not really it has to be indoor pool. It has to
no. This is minor league baseball. These guys have roommates. They're bunking up. We're looking for a safe place for them to be able to sleep at night. This is not the Indians looking for Ritz-Carlton or the Four Seasons. So, yes, sir.
Do you travel with it?
I have. That's an adventure, by the way. So I made the first mistake of riding the bus on a trip this year. I made a trip to Bowie, Maryland, riding on the bus. I'm not sure I'm going to do that again. One, I don't think they wanted me on the bus, and two, hanging out with those guys for that long is probably not good for anybody. But no kidding. They're great guys, but it's a long time on the bus. Our manager this year, Edwin Rodriguez, managed the Florida Marlins Major League team, and this was his first he started getting back into minor leagues, and he said it was quite an adjustment, riding that bus around all summer long. Keep in mind, these guys are on the road, literally, so they play 71 games at home, 71 games on the road. So they're driving around all summer long, and some of these trips are quite far. So yeah, I made a few trips. Of course, when I go visit other minor league teams, I'm more interested in the operation. I don't necessarily sit there and watch the game. I'm looking at, their version of the Screamer or whatever the great concession item that they're building, and I look at their prices. I'm very price conscious. I want to, what's the parking like? How does that work? Where's the hotel? those kinds of issues. So, yes, sir.
I'm reading a book right now about the Cape Cod Baseball League.
Yeah, great
Never knew
baseball.
it existed.
Oh yeah.
It's the top echelon
Oh, yeah.
of college baseball.
Mhm.
Do we have any players from Cape Cod League?
That's a great question. I don't think we did this past season. The exception might have been Tyler Holt, our center fielder, might have played a year for Chatham. Minor league baseball draws players from all over the globe. We had happened to have a heavily focused team from the Dominican and Puerto Rico this year. It just works out that way, as a lot of these guys are coming from the Latin countries. I went to Wheaton, as I mentioned, and so we used to spend time in the fall before those seasons wrapped up going to these games. If you ever travel to that part of New England, the Cape, and these are not fancy stadiums, a lot of the games are free. Sometimes they charge $1. You're getting wooden bat baseball with some of the top prospects. I mean, I'm not sure the book you're reading, but you will see future major leaguers playing. Yeah, and they live with families. I mean, they get placed. So you're living in Chatham, Massachusetts, and living in some guy's basement, and these people host the families and feed the kids, and you could be you could have Nick Swisher in your basement and not know it. I mean, it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. I'd love to hear more about that book, because I'm very interested in the sort of the grassroots part of how these players' career begins. And a lot of those guys remember what it was like starting. This is, of course, they're not really getting paid much, and they're getting started the idea of playing professional baseball. It's a long ways from where they end up in the major leagues, for sure. Yes, ma'am.
I don't know if it's too far, but they haven't announced, the developer hasn't announced what the plans are for building D in Kent yet. University people there, less people in the
Yeah.
summer.
Yep. That's a great point. I was in Kent on Friday night. What's happened in downtown Kent has been fantastic. I was
And
at
they might already have.
yeah.
that. I
No,
don't
I'd
know
love
if
to learn
they're
more. I
not-
was at a restaurant called Laziza, I think it was called. It was like Aladdin's, like we have here.
But that
It was
one
it was
building
delicious. Yeah.
Where they're not the one that you can see going up, there's
Yeah.
an empty lot that
Yeah.
where they have the construction.
It's great. It's great. Yes, sir.
Now, you were talking about your team manager.
That's a great example. The manager is one of the only positions where officially it's the Indians. The manager is, you were asking questions about how my interaction with the Indians. The manager is one of the only positions that we really get together and have a conversation on. Now, if I said, I really don't want that guy, conceivably they could force that guy anyway, but generally they give us a guy. I mean, getting a guy who has major league experience, we'd take that any day. And I hope Edwin comes back next year. For those of you who follow the World Baseball Classic, he managed the Puerto Rican team, which went all the way to the finals. And so he's going to be a major league manager again someday for sure. There's no question about it. So his days on the bus, I think, are numbered. Yes, sir.
Well, without being too specific, and we're all business owners
Sure.
here,
Yes, sir.
right, would like to make a buck.
Yeah.
So your attendance is down.
Yes.
You're selling $2 hot dogs.
$5 seats.
Your tickets are $5.
Yeah.
You paid $4.5 million worth of improvements.
Yep. Karen Sullivan from my accounting firm's in the back row. She would love to hear the answer to this question. She's with Bober Marquis Fedorovich, our outstanding financial firm. And she's probably eagerly waiting to see how I'm going to answer this question. So the team was profitable this year, if that's helpful. You're not going to get rich in minor league baseball. I don't think this is a business where you're seeing the kinds of profits. And by the way, I think the major league teams have had their struggles in terms of making money as well. I think our mission is as much about profitability as it is about the philanthropic nature of what we're trying to do for the community. We have financial goals like anybody in the room would have financial goals for their business, but our goals were much more measured this year around fan engagement, fan retention, and experience. So, if we didn't make a penny this year, and I heard that we had 300,000, we ended up having 295,000 fans in the ballpark, and they all said how excited they were to be able to come back next season, that would be a successful season from a benchmarking standpoint. But I'm proud that we were able to to put our costs and initiatives forward to be able to build a business that also has some legs. I think people generally are rooting for businesses to be successful that are mindful of affordability, and I think it also shows that we can win the game by getting people to the ballpark at those cheap prices and being able to deliver a great experience. I mean, our food quality is terrific for the prices that we're charging. And I should have added, and I was just sharing this with a local group this morning, everything you find in the ballpark is coming from this region. So the prior owner was getting his peanuts from some place in Missouri. Ours comes from the peanut shop in downtown Akron. Our buns come from Schwabel's right here off the highway. I mentioned Bober Marquis Fedorovich, our local accounting firm. We work with local lawyers. We're looking with, Five Star Meats in Cleveland is our, meat firm. We use a car service from Cascade Automotive. I mean, every step of the way we choose local businesses. And I think truthfully that at the end of the day, I mean, that's the only way you do the same in your business. We're part of the local community. Why should I be buying my peanuts from some guy in Missouri when I can literally walk down South Main Street and place my order that way? And even if it's a little bit more expensive, it's the right thing to do, because we're all part of this cycle of the economic development of the region, and we take that very, very seriously.
Do you think it's more recession-proof than a lot of other sports?
Yeah, there have been a lot of surveys and studies about minor league baseball, and it's certainly minor league baseball had an attendance downturn during the recession. Some markets were hit harder than others. Erie, Pennsylvania really got hit hard. Just, it's a market that just had a tough time kind of weathering the storm. I think Akron as a market, again, just looking at this as a guy who, I wasn't living here, I wasn't sort of, in it too, but I've read obviously a lot about it. Akron was so far ahead of the game in terms of reinventing itself in the post-rubber era that, this was a community that was so much more equipped to be able to attack the economic impacts on what was happening, that I think, an affordable entertainment product, even back then charging, at the time it was $7 and $11 for tickets, was, still a pretty good value. I think what happened to the franchise, frankly, is that the experiential pieces were really lacking. The ballpark wasn't clean. They fired the ushers. The food was too expensive. I mean, but there were a lot of challenges, and so, there's no quick fix to a lot of these things, but I do think it's a good business to be in for somebody that is trying to be conscious of how people spend their discretionary income. Just we certainly saw the increases in attendance because of the result of the more affordable experiences. Ma'am?
Yeah, so since baseball seems to be a male dominated in terms of how would you speak to a woman that might be trying to get into, or a younger, female that might want to break into the business?
Great question. So of our full-time staff, I think at the end of the season, I think we're at 23 or 25 at the moment. How many do you think are men and how many do you think are women? Any guess? I want to say, how many of them do you think are women?
I'm going to say half.
So 16 are women. So very close. So in our business, we are seeing, and again, I think this is all again about the quality of the people that you're hiring in the right roles. The emergence of women in professional sports is growing at an astronomical pace. I mean, it will absolutely happen in our lifetime that there'll be a female commissioner in a league. The global head of the NBA is a woman. There are just a lot of different, a lot of roles where the game is just changing. And I think that the world of the male-dominated culture in sports, I can speak specifically to baseball, has absolutely changed. I mean, the best and the brightest minds in the promotional side of the business, the marketing side of the business, the sales side of the business are all women. I mean, there's just no question about it. Tomorrow morning at 8:30, we've rented out the Akron Zoo to do a 2-day retreat for our staff to plan for 2014. We have some competing groups making presentations, and I talked about our goofy promotions. We're going to literally put up like 200-300 ideas, and we're going to pick the best ones, and that's how we're going to plan our year. By the way, if you have any ideas, send them my way. I'd vote fireworks, by the way. It always works. I'm $2 hot dogs. It's great. I would bet, and you can follow up with me on it, that of the 71 nights, 60 of them are successfully proposed by women on our staff. It's just a guess, but and they will be phenomenal ideas. Ideas that you would hear and say, you guys are going to sell out that game. That's just a great idea. I mean, it just happens to be how it works. Yeah.
You ever thought about seriously trying to target residents in Cuyahoga County and come to Akron? And if you do that, again, you have to get permission of Indians, or if you want to do it at Native Indians or out of town? Or
Yeah.
something like that?
So we have a shared territory right with the Indians. We can market as far as Cleveland because we're a minor league team. The territories in minor league baseball are pretty expansive. Cuyahoga County is an area of focus for us, obviously Summit, where we are. I'll tell you the area that interests me tremendously to the south is Canton. I think the prior owner was really not liked there for moving the team up. It's been 17 years. We're trying to build something. Canton supported minor league baseball for many years. Stark County, it's a great sports history, not just with football there. So I think Stark County and Cuyahoga County, I mean, even into Tuscarawas County, if you come into my office at the stadium, you'll see this huge map with these huge radius rings on it, and we got to win back the local community first. But I mean, I think the area of opportunity here is enormous, and for us to get back to those years where I'm sitting here saying, hey guys, we had 500,000 fans this year, we're just going to have to be successful there. And I worry a little bit about the Indians' attendance. We want them to be successful. We're not trying to take fans from the Indians. I think our product is priced totally differently. I mean, just looking at it objectively, sitting behind the plate at an Indians game is a $71 ticket. It's just a different product. Parking, all that food. So.
Don't do variable ticket prices.
No. I think that wouldn't make sense in our business.
I think that's my opinion.
You think that's what hurt them?
I think that's what killed the Indians.
Interesting.
You had to play with ticket prices,
Yeah.
and you just got the heck of
Yeah.
going.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think more people are likely to come in because we're playing Portland versus the Harrisburg Senators in our business.
They have the option,
Yeah.
but I think that it got to the
Yeah.
point where I want to go on Tuesday
Yep.
night and look, the ticket's $28.
Yep.
The other day it was 22.
Yes,
I think I'll stay home.
I would agree with you. Yes, sir.
Just to add to that, I heard on the way here tonight on 1350 radio, there seemed to be something, and I'm not bashing the Indians, but there was a discussion where families were trying to buy $8 tickets. They wouldn't sell the tickets, they could only sell them the $25 tickets. And they were complimenting you in your organization that a family of four can make it to Akron, but on $25 tickets, that's a different market.
Yeah, I mean, it's very kind of you to say that. I mean, I think the Indians have different economic challenges of minor league. It's just not fair to compare. They're not apples to apples. I think their costs are different. They're trying to support a payroll, a larger facility. I know that we can get away doing $5 tickets and would be thrilled to have a group down and for $12 do an all-you-can-eat buffet. I mean, I'm all about quantity. I want people to be able to come in, but I care very much if I could poll our fans on the way out the door at night and say, do you feel like you got a great value for the money you paid? I'd do it in a second. And I guess ultimately the measure of that is, do they come back? Steve Jobs at Apple said, and I think this is such a wise point, is consumers get a chance to vote on your product every day. When they first came out with the iPhone, and they said to him, well, why would anybody want to have their music and their camera and their phone all in one device? Obviously, that worked out pretty well for Apple. He said, well, we're going to see. And we're going to try and build a great product. And the great thing about our business is consumers get a chance to vote every single day as to whether or not they want this or they don't want it. And I think in our case, the same mantra is true, that if we do our job well, we keep our prices low, and we create this outstanding experience, there are a lot of people in this community from Stark County, Cuyahoga, Summit, Tuscarawas, every community all the way working its way north that would want to spend its time there, including here. Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, I missed the buffet is something that you're thinking about, or do you
What was that?
Season, the buffet?
Oh, so a number of minor league teams do an all-you-can-eat buffet. We'll be introducing that next year. So it'll be a $12 all-you-can-eat buffet available for fans.
What was your average revenue per person per game? What would it cost you to take a family of four average to that game?
So it depends where you want to sit. Let's
you have 295,000,
Yeah, so yeah, I mean, generally fans, we don't get too public about our per caps per fans, but I can help you with a little math and give you back into it. Average ticket price is about $7, which is the halfway point between the two, and most people spend between, somewhere between $7 and $12 on food per person. So not including merchandise, and of course, sponsorship is a huge part of our business as well.
Boy Scouts. I got back from Seattle and said, "Oh, Pop, I wish you had been here this summer because we got to camp out at
Yeah.
the stadium, Washington. That was the best event we had all summer."
Awesome.
I got you to do that again.
Absolutely. So if you haven't, if you have kids that are in the Scouts, and we do them for boys and for the Girl Scouts as well. We do 3 Scout nights a year. This is the coolest. If I had a photo of it, I'd share it with you. After the game, the kids come on the field. They set up their tents. We put a movie on for them. It's incredible. I mean, it's a sight to see. And I stay late and just kind of watch the kids. And there was a father and son just kind of playing catch before they went to bed on the field. And then the movie on the big video board. Thank you for your comments. I mean, those are the kinds of stories, frankly, that will motivate us all winter long. I will share that with our team tomorrow. I mean, that's why we do what we do. And it's these notes and emails that we get where people just say, you helped make my kid's summer, or we're very big in the birthday party business. We can produce from soup to nuts the birthday party, have the kids on the field, even take the field with the team, and before the game with our VIP birthday experience. And we get letters from families just saying, what an incredible experience. It's a lifetime. It's a memory that your kids will never forget. Hi, Karen. Did I reveal too many numbers?
No.
Okay.
To his point, and I apologize because I didn't come in late, you might have already addressed this, but of course I'm going to take it back to business. Did you talk about how other ideas that you have to utilize the stadium?
Yeah, it's a great point. We talked about the movie nights. We're open to doing just about anything you can imagine on that field. I mentioned Joe Camphor earlier with Gojo, and he's been a real mentor for me in the community. He said too, one of the smartest things they did with their business was they built the habit that when a doctor walks into a hospital room, that they sanitize their hands. They use the machine. They Purell up, I believe was his words. We're trying to build the habit of getting people downtown on a weekend, spring and summer nights, and we're going to do that not just when the Aeros are home, but with events all year long. Certainly during the spring and summer months. I don't think we're going to build a skating rink. I don't think we're going to do any of those things just yet. Maybe someday, but concerts, wrestling, a beer festival. If you've never been downtown for the Akron Marathon, that's coming up in a couple weeks. It actually finishes in the ballpark. It'll be a totally different experience this year with the video board and some things that we're doing with the great folks at the marathon. So that's going to be a great experience. We sat, and this will be part of our brainstorm session tomorrow. We've sat down already, started to think about all of these different things you could do, from farmers markets to, how do you utilize this outstanding facility that we pay a lease for the ballpark. So for some of these things, opening it up for the movie, it really doesn't cost us a lot to do it. It just doesn't. So we're paying an exclusive lease on the facility, and to swing open the gates on a Saturday night in July and put Field of Dreams on the video board, the costs are almost close to zero. So we want people to come in, and of course it also helps us from a concession standpoint, and putting a blanket down on the field and gazing up and watching a movie, pretty incredible. And then the campouts, the scout nights, we did a beer run this year where we actually have people chug beers and run. Not the most safe experience, but we should do an extreme food run. That would be interesting. See how that would go. But yeah, open to any ideas you have. And actually, I have a stack of business cards, and would love to get to know some of you more personally and share your ideas. I mean, one of the coolest things about our business is it is completely fathomable for you to suggest something and for us to do it. I mean, I don't miss that. From the world of the Post and the corporate America. If we had an idea on our staff, we had to go through 14 layers of approval to get something done. Somebody had an idea for the beer festival, we said, let's do it. Somebody had an idea for the farmers market, we're going to do it next spring. So if you have an idea that you think would be great for us and would like to see happen and want to work with us on it, we would love to work with you. I mean, it's We're just that kind of an organization. So, yeah.
You watched all the movies ever made about minor league baseball?
I've watched a lot of movies about minor league baseball and baseball overall. There are a lot, and some are more relevant and some are not. By the way, a movie that we want to air next year at the ballpark is 42. I don't know if you guys had a chance to see that, which is the Jackie Robinson story. It came out a little too late for us to do this year, but there's some great Negro League baseball players that live in this region that are, believe it or not, still alive and able to come down to the ballpark. And many of these guys either played with Jackie Robinson or played during that era and can do a panel talking about what that meant to them. And could you imagine if we were able to produce, 42 night at the ballpark, air that movie, even if we had a baseball game or even brought back some of these old guys and, had some kind of an exhibition on the field and did something like that. So I think there's something there. You mentioning the movie made me think about it. I'd like to get an edited version of the movie. There's a couple scenes in there that would concern me a little bit to air in front of a family audience. But that's, by the way, why we didn't air Major League. We were going to air it after Roger Dorn night, and if you've ever seen Major League, probably not the most fan-friendly movie. So we encourage people to go home and watch it after the game.
Where do you park?
If
I come down there.
I parked right on the street, right out here. I thought this was fantastic. So there are 7 after 6 p.m. in downtown Akron, and we moved our start times all till 7 so that you can always park for free coming to the game. So there are 7,000 free parking spots within 8 blocks of the stadium. So there were a couple of nights this year where we ran into some trouble. We had 9,000 people. So
You're talking about parking garages, or you're talking about
decks,
finding a spot?
Decks, garages, and ramps, all in the area. I challenged our season ticket holders to really give me examples of where they had trouble parking for games if they arrived 15 minutes before it started, and I didn't get one complaint this year. Not about the price point and not about the challenges. There were a few nights where there were lock 3 events and somebody tried showing up at 8 o'clock. Yeah, I mean, you'll find a spot. It's just going to take you, 10 minutes to find a spot. It's not going to be, and by the way, the spot's free when you do find it, so it's not going to be a $40 spot. I was more worried about parking than I had known about when I moved here. I spent a lot of time talking to the mayor about parking in the lease, and I said I want to create these lots and VIP lots, and we left the language open such that we could always come back and do it, but parking really hasn't been an obstacle when we talk about fan experience. It just,
Can you talk to him about that weird backing in parking thing?
Which one? Oh, the sideways parking, like in front of the bar. He's a fan of it, That's his. He'll tell you that in Europe that's like transformed parking. Yeah.
As far as parking downtown,
This is a guy with a solution right here.
the only paid parking after 6 during the week and on weekends is across the street at a privately owned spot.
That's right.
But there is plenty of parking down at this big Edding warehouse, but there's only, two blocks, 3 blocks maybe from the stadium. And there's just so much parking. I run a rickshaw business up and down the road, so, but I don't really do that well at baseball games only because the parking is so good. I only do my business after the bar crowds and stuff like that. So that's where I run the parking is that good.
It's all part of the experience. And if the parking wasn't good, we'd have to do something to fix it. If I had to go out and start, buying some of these lots to be able to solve that problem, we would do it. And I've said that. And the reason is because it's all part of those. If I map that experience touch point, if you say to me, let's not go to the Aeros game because the parking's hard to find, I've lost you as a customer. That's not been a challenge we've had. So we're always looking for all those pain points. And when we see them, we talk about this with our staff. If you can find something wrong in the fan experience, and we want people to, tackle it and try and find it. And every person on our staff is empowered to solve problems with the fan experience. So if there's a parking problem, if your car can't stop because there's a battery, you have access to AAA, which we keep at the ballpark on game nights. I mean, we are looking for every imaginable thing that could go wrong. And in a sick way almost, we thrive in those moments when something goes wrong. Somebody's ice cream falls, something bad happens. We want to over-deliver to make that experience even better. So, yes, ma'am.
Is there a way to see the away games telecast in the park, or is that done already?
So we are every single one of our games, home and away, are broadcast on AkronAeros.com. which is great for people who want to follow the team. There is a subscription required. We actually don't make any money off of that. It's from MILB.com. It's part of Major League Baseball. It's $9 for the entire season for a subscription. So it's not a lot of money. So if you're a big baseball fan and want to follow the Aeros on the road, that's the best way to do it visually. Our games are also broadcast on 1350 home and away. Dave Wilson and Jim Clark are the voice of the Aeros, and they actually travel with the team. That's how I get my great stories of what happens on the bus, by the way. Speaking of old minor league baseball, I mean, in the old days of baseball, the broadcasters used to travel with the team from city to city, and you'd see that in the old movies. That's how these great stories were captured. That's changed now, whereas the broadcasters travel separately from the teams. But Dave Wilson and Jim Clark broadcast 142 games this year, and they're free to listen to on the radio, although we say the home games are more fun to come to. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Comment and a question. It's my understanding that some of the city-owned garages still charge you to park after 6 p.m.
I don't believe that to be the case. And I'm seeing a couple people shake their heads no. There's a county building. You're correct about that. First of all, there's a private lot directly across the stadium, which we tell folks certainly welcome. I think it's $5 to park in that lot. The best garage, if you want to come to the Aeros game, is the building next to the O'Neill's building. It's the State Street garage. I think that lot has like 2,000 spots or 1,800 spots, something like that. And that is absolutely free after 6 p.m. But again, there's 7,000 spots that are free. The Summit County garage is not free.
Police station.
Correct. And I believe the University of Akron garage charges until, I don't know the time. Yeah, so those are the two that I know that are, or three that are not.
And my question was say I go to downtown Akron on Tuesdays from time to time, but say someone isn't familiar with the downtown area, on your website and or in literature that you can send out to the potential customer, do you have any kind of map of downtown on what parking garages are free?
It's a great idea.
How far away from the stadium?
We will now. It's a great idea. It's a great idea. Look for it on akronaeros.com. We'll create it for you. That's a great idea. Yeah.
I'm sure you connected with the Downtown Akron Partnership, and they have it all listed on the website.
Yeah, so the city and through Susie Graham, I actually sit on the Downtown Akron Partnership Board. They're terrific with that stuff, but we will one-up them and give you a great map. If you give me your card and I'll give you mine as well, we'll make sure we'll send that to you so you have it and ready to go. But yeah, that's a great point. It's a great example. Yes?
Yeah, my question's about entrepreneurship.
Sure.
And enjoyed your story. If I didn't know any better, it sounds like it's just been a nice, smooth ride for you, but you probably had one of those what have I done moments.
Yeah.
And I was wondering if you would be willing to
Sure.
share one of those moments with us, how
Yeah.
you reacted to that.
Yeah, I'll give you an example of, for those of you that will get to know me, and I hope to get to know a lot of you, I share a lot about my personal life. I'm not shy about it. That's a personal choice. I choose to share it. I don't encourage necessarily everybody to treat their personal and their business life like that. Several years ago, as a result of really working to the max, I ended up going through a very difficult divorce and have a wonderful relationship with my ex and am able to see Josh a lot. It is, being apart from Josh, and he lives in Maryland, and I never go more than 5 or 6 days without seeing him. I'm very fortunate to be able to go back and forth very quickly. And although your question may have been about an entrepreneurial business success or failure from that point, I believe entrepreneurs, more so than any other business people, are deeply tied between their personal growth and their professional growth. I believe that the waters are mixed in ways that they're not if you're working for a Fortune 500 company. And even in those worlds, people have their challenges as well. Your life becomes your business and your business becomes your life. And I think when I moved to Ohio and I did this, and I said, I am all in. I mean, I was all in. I mean, and for those of you that know me and you know, Karen's in the room, and she sees me at all these crazy events all around town. You know, I mean, this is my life. I have moved to Akron to take on this great business challenge. There are certainly moments where I say to myself, what would it be like if I was still in Washington, D.C.? What would it be like if, you know, I had Josh here with me? You know, I've solved that problem, one, by bringing Josh out here on the weekends, and by going back and making sure I've made a 5-day rule with myself, and I'm actually seeing my son more than I did when I was working at the Post, when I had less control over my own schedule. And so have I looked back and had any regrets? Not really. You have a funny way of looking at life and the twists and turns. If you'd asked me 10 years ago or 5 years ago, would I be living in Ohio doing this? I'd say, how did that happen? And now I sit in front of groups all the time and I say, my God, I'm the luckiest guy in the world. I have more fun with my job. I wake up every day truly excited to go to work. And I'm able to have, you know, be an assistant coach on my son's t-ball team, as I shared with you, and be able to do those kinds of things, and it's a dream come true. I will also say that for those of you who have ever thought of leaving the more traditional business world for the entrepreneur world, this is not for everybody, right? I mean, there's a stomach that it requires. I mean, I work very hard, as many of you do. This is not easy stuff. And even people look at us and say, well, what do you do? Your season ended. Are you just going to hang out at the beach? I mean, we have a long way to go. And I care so passionately about having these interactions with our fans. In some ways, I couldn't wait for the season to start all these things that we wanted to do for next year. And so I'd say that, you know, if I could do anything differently this year, it would be to just try and meet more people and, you know, get out even more. The final, I'll close this and I'll share you this story. This came completely unguided. You know, sometimes you just get ideas and things happen and you look back and you say, my God, I was so, you know, lucky to have that happen. The last night of the season was Fan Appreciation Night. This was 3 weeks ago now. It was the 6th inning of the game. I think it had finally set in that this was the last night I was going to be here. I mean, we had, you know, 7,000 people in the stands on a Thursday night. And, you know, we did a number of raffles and giveaways and fun things for our fans, thank them. But I just almost automatically started walking down every aisle of the stadium. There are about 35 section concourses. I visit all of our suites every night anyway. I'd been doing that all season. But I started walking down every aisle of the stadium, just saying, thank you so much for being here. We couldn't have done this without you. Look forward to seeing you guys next season. And I think about those conversations that I had with those people. And just like the gentleman in the back who shared the story about his son on the scout camp out. Those are the stories, those are the conversations, those are the relationships that entrepreneurs thrive on, right? Because they're all people who say, thank you for doing this. You know, you're helping us solve a problem. You're providing this great entertainment experience. And so I would do more of that. And that's exactly what we intend to do. I still have, you know, 24 years left on this lease, so I got plenty of time to do it, I guess. So thank you so much for having me, guys. Greatly appreciate it. I have some business cards here, and like all of you,